So thank you, Sister Lucy. First of all, I would like to thank our Heavenly Mother for her great mercy for this opportunity again to be able to share with all of you. Thank you also to our Buddhas, saints, and sages for their protection and never ending guidance to all of us. Thank you also to all our masters, okay, and for giving us always the opportunity to learn and to share what we have learned. And also to all of you who are present out here, to all the seniors, thank you so much. And for all those listening tonight, because without you, I will not have this opportunity. Should I proceed now? Okay. 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 Our topic for tonight is the great trials and the tests of Tao. I chose this topic because it is very timely, especially during our current situation right now. Since last year, we have been experiencing great trials, right? Do you agree? Do you all agree that we have been experiencing great trials all over the world? All people all over the world are experiencing great trials, and every day is actually a struggle just to survive. Is Do we need to translate? Do I still need to wait for a translator?
No need na, just speak English na lang.
Okay, okay. So thank you. Because I thought somebody's going to translate. But anyway, like I said, I chose this topic because of every day is a struggle for all of us just to survive, right? And first of all, that's why every morning when I wake up, I always give thanks to our Heavenly Mother. When you wake up every day with your heart beating, with your lungs breathing, it's such a great blessing. It is a miracle, actually. So, when it comes to trials, okay, the purpose of this lecture is for us to realize once more, to remind ourselves why we need to be grateful for trials. What is the purpose of our trials and why we need to be grateful for it? That is the purpose of this lecture. And for us all to realize how very fortunate we are that we are enlightened and that we are guided by the Buddhas and sages, despite the great trials that that are happening around us and in our lives. So first, we all know that life always has trials. As long as you're alive, there will always be trial. Now, as a matter of fact, there is in the medical field where I am right now, one thing that we always need to remember is that, I don't know if you will recognize what this is, what I'm drawing right now, right? Do you see this? Do you see what I'm drawing right now? Okay, is that do you recognize? Okay, when you go to the doctor, when you have a heart problem, okay, are you going to have an ECG? Yes. Okay. And what is an ECG? It is, there is a saying that life has ups and downs, right? And if your life has ups and downs, you have to be grateful because that means you are still alive. Okay. So a life without trials is no longer a person without trials is like somebody who is already in the memorial lot. Okay. Those are the people who are already dead. So as long as we're alive, we will always encounter trials. One thing that we will always notice and remember is that every time after each trial, a bigger one always comes along, right? So we cannot escape trials in our lives. So the best way to deal with trials is to understand and to trust heaven. Why, trials come into our lives. Now, let us remember that heaven gives us trial because it builds our wisdom. We become enlightened through our trials, through the test that comes into our lives. And I will explain that much further as we go along. And one thing also that we need to appreciate is that when we encounter a lot of trials, we are actually blessed. Why? Because a life without trials versus a life without trials is like, a tree on top of the mountain. Now, what's the difference between a tree that is on top of the mountain and a tree that actually grew in the plains? Okay. In the mountains, the trees are easily subjected to the forces of nature. Whenever there is a storm, whenever there is a typhoon, the first one that the storm hits is the trees on the top of the mountains. That's why they are stronger. They have bigger roots. They are deeply rooted onto the ground. They don't easily give up. And that is a life with a lot of trials. We become stronger. We become more courageous after each trial. But a life that is, an easy life, a life built without trials, is a life like before when a strong typhoon hit Metro Manila. The trees were easily thrown on the ground because the plains are not very much used to trials. So like example for us parents, sometimes our children will go through certain tests or trials in their lives, and sometimes we try our best to solve their problems for them. But there comes a time when we need to allow them to solve their own problems because that's how they learn, right? So you cannot shield your children, your loved ones, from trials, because trials come to, God gives us trials to build our strength, to enlighten us, to help us, realize a lot of things that we never would have realized without those trials. So um what are the different types of trials? So in life, we encounter several types of trials. Some of those trials are good, some are bad. What do I mean by that? So normally we see trials as something bad, right? When something bad happens, somebody gets sick, somebody went through, a lot of mistakes. They have a lot of losses or sickness and diseases. We see it as something bad. But what if things are actually going good, going great? So we don't realize that when things are good, that could also be a trial, right? Now, for example, in us cultivators, right? Now, for example, what is a type of a good trial? For example, um, a cultivator, for example, is, let's say, blessed with good business, or when a cultivator is promoted from his or her job, and that's why he was given more responsibilities, and he has a raise in his salary, but he has more responsibilities. Or if you have a business and your business is doing well, and now it's Friday and it's time for us to listen to lectures, or when people are inviting you to the temple, you oftentimes do not have time, right? Why? And because of the good fortune that happened in your life. So that's why I said that trials can sometimes be good. It's not always in bad times. And so that's why we have to be aware of everything that's happening in our lives. We should be always mindful of our thoughts, of our actions. And most of our trials actually are internal. So you see there internal and external trials. So when we say external trials, that's it. That is when, for example, a family member gets sick, a family member lost his job, or you lost your job, things like that. or you yourself got sick, you get it from the outside, right? So those are external trials coming from the outside. But actually, those external trials bring with it what we call internal trials. And that is the greatest trial, especially to us cultivator. Like I said, trials can come in different ways. It could be good, it could be bad.
咱的到卡，咱的无可有法人好善的可有法人恶的可有 good 有善甲恶的考验。Okay, next. System.
Okay. Good trials can be, for example, you got a promotion, your business is doing good, you have a lot of clients, your business is very busy. So what happens, when you are promoted, when you have a good fortune, your business is doing good. So when it is time sometimes to go to the temple, sometimes we have no more time.
善的考验就是顺考，叫做顺考。伊的意思就是说，有时咱的生理会也好，有时咱会去甲客人咧讲的代志，大家有，你会摕到也侪好的，拢总继续伊好的啦，家庭顺遂，生理顺利，拢总一个就是叫做顺你。顺的好的考验。
So bad trials are trials that are like when somebody gets sick, when we lost our job, we have losses in our business, or we lost a loved one. So those are bad trials.
Okay.
Example.
恶嘅考验就是说，咱有阵咱的厝内，咱的家己，是咱的家己无乖，是咱的生理会拄着也侪代志，是咱的身躯，咱的身体状况无真好，身体无健康，这是属于恶嘅无意嘅代志。
Okay. Okay. Trials can also be internal or external. When we say external first, those are whatever happens outside of us or around us. For example, like what I said, the bad trials. Whenever somebody gets sick, or whenever we have problems outside, whenever we have like, for example, we have losses. So those are external trials.
考验有两种，一种就是叫做外科，一种就叫做内科。像咱咧说，昨摆咱咧说无顺遂的恶嘅考验，就是叫做外科，就是咱身躯无健康。也上咧毋好，也上出代志，安尼，这是属于外科无好的外科。Next.
And whatever happens outside, externally, whatever trials we experience outside, actually the greatest trial is what happens inside. Okay? The greatest trials that we will actually experience in life are internal trials.
咱拄着会考试，就是说，咱有时咱感觉说，咱会拄着在外口会考验的在，实际上是为咱心内出来的考验。
So trials are actually, the other term for that is test.
咱的考验，咱的验咧考验，这个嘛是叫做一个考验，一个考验。咱的模考就是叫做考验。
And God puts us to the test for several reasons.
若是咱会拄着也侪考验，咱为什么会拄着也侪考验呢？这个就是上天咧试验咱，试验咱。OK。
And that is the purpose of our lecture tonight, for us to realize the purpose why we need to undergo trials and tests in life.
咱今日咱要怎啊面对受到的考验 ？OK。Next.
According to the Bible, consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its perfect result, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. So what does that mean? What is the message of the Bible to us? Why do we encounter trials? It says here, we are being perfected.
这个伫圣经内面James 第1 verse 第2到第4说，咱的兄，咱敢若是会落伫班次，咱敢若是会有拄着也侪款的考验，也侪款的试验，就是因为咱都爱为着这项咱的考验，咱就对这项考验就较欢喜，咱就真甘愿接受，因为知影恁的信心经过的试验，就是有法人忍耐，但忍耐嘛，就会当你若有法人忍耐，你就有法人成功，有法人成全，完毕无欠啥，无缺欠。OK.
Okay, so how does God perfect us through trials? How does God perfect us through trials?
所以说，咱上天老母娘要怎做咱，互咱有法人受到一个考验，有法人互咱说咱有造就咱有法人成功。
So one of the reasons or one of the ways that God perfect us through trials is, or the purpose of our trials is to know which is true from false and to help us to realize the truth.
所以说，上天要怎制作咱，互咱有法人成功，就是说，咱要知影说，考验因为有分真甲假的考验。
So trials determine who is a true cultivator and who is not.
考验有法人将受到人分出真假，嘛就是变出真受，还是咧假受。有法人甲咱说，你是咧真正会咧受到，还是咧做互人看利益。
I will share with you two stories that illustrate how trials bring out who is the true cultivator and who is not the true cultivator.
我准要甲恁分享一个故事，说我上也是真的咧受到，上也是咧假受到。
I have an office mate which I brought to the temple maybe 2 years ago, and after she received the Tao, she still did not practice vegetarian right away, even though she knows that she has listened to lectures already, but she did not practice vegetarian yet.
两年前，我有带一个朋友去活动求道，不过伊求道了后，伊也是有咧听道理，不过伊无法人真心咧，伊无法人说要像人安尼咧食菜。
and she is the one that I'm in the education field. So we teach a lot of nurses, and sometimes we have hundreds of students. And this office mate is the one that gives food or brings food to the students.
所以说因为我是Sister Rosemary 伊是属于伫一个教育伊咧教伊是咧教育护士教育学校，伊带一个大亲，这个大亲虽然说伊无全口，毋过伊是咧煮食互伊咧卖一个食的咧互伊遮学生。OK。
And the owner of the business imposed vegetarian in our office because I was able to transform him into vegetarian. But this office worker would sometimes sneak in some meat, especially to the students. She would sometimes bring in meat without me knowing it.
因为说伊的头家是规定伊学堂伊都食的是都属于食菜的，因为咱 Sister Rosemarie 伊食菜，虽然说无称口，就是都食菜。毋过一个咧煮食的，伊一个大亲是伫学堂咧卖一个食的，所以说头家嘛是有交代说，你要卖遮学生食的是着拢总素的，无啥物臭臭。毋过一个大亲伊无要相信，伊在是会掺一个臭臭的物件去卖互学生食。OK， next。
And then one day, she had a high blood pressure. She had hypertension. Her blood pressure went up, and she had a mild stroke. She had a mild stroke.
所以伊一个大亲咧卖学生食面的物件，伊忽然间着真轻微的中风，因为血压忽然间冲起来，才有轻微的一个中风。Okay.
And that when she had that high blood pressure and she cannot feel already half of her body, she was so scared. She was so scared.
So 伊说伊轻微的中风，伊有差不多有规半身，也是袂啥动作，也是较有侦查咯。所以伊说伊也惊吓。Okay.
So at that moment, I was talking to her. I said to her, be calm, call on Chikong Buddha, be sorry if you have, if you have committed mistakes. And that's when she tried to tell me, sorry, because even though you do not allow meat here, I sometimes still bring meat, but I'm sorry, I will never, ever, ever do that again.
所以说，伊甲一位大亲说，你家己叫上天志工老师求原谅，甲老师说，我已经头家吩咐说，袂做你卖一个荤的物件，毋过你再荤的物件，所以会发生即项代志。你家己甲老师说，你忏悔，你无要搁安尼，无要搁创即项代志咯。OK。
So we helped her with the help of medication. She was able to recover. And from that time until now, so that was more than 2 years ago, from that time until now, she became pure vegetarian.
所以说，就是应该一直 Sister Rosemarie 因家己一直该鼓励，互伊有一个 信心，所以说伊阵就是已经专的已经是食菜，虽然说无窗口，毋过伊是食菜嘞，去拔着草草，也无过去煮着草草的咯。
And whenever the students when the students will tell her, sometimes the students will tell her, please bring meat, even though they don't know it. You know what she will do? She will explain to the students what happened to her, and she said, "I nearly died because I keep on eating meat, but when I became vegetarian, it saved my life."
所以说，伊有的学生会坚持甲一个大清说，我要爱食肉，要爱食啥物，你搁摕肉，还是鸡，还是鱼来买？啊，毋过一个大清说，我无买咯，我因为我也惊我的命已经伫会有危险的所在，所以说我袂搁煮在草草一载荤的物件咯。Okay.
And I know that she is very sincere because not only that, every time I invite her to go to temple, to listen to lecture, it's just that she doesn't have internet on Friday evening. She really wanted to listen to lectures. Every time I invite her, she would always make herself free because she knows she was very fortunate and that she believed in the Tao.
所以说，这个道歉就是专心的食素。啊，伊这边伊若是 Rosemarie 嘛，叫伊去活动听道理，伊就会缀伊去活动听道理。伊袂阁提示，因为伊相信道的好处。Okay.
And on the other hand, I know a Tao cultivator who he was very active in the beginning because he was serving in the temple, and then later on after he asked for something from the Buddha and the Buddha did not give it to him, he suddenly turned his back to the temple.
有用一位道亲，一开始伊是一真诚心的，是逐摆会去佛堂听道理，还是去佛堂拜拜，因为伊有甲仙佛要求物件，有甲仙佛要求，毋过仙佛无允准伊的要求，所以伊的要求咧无实现的时阵，伊就好无要搁回来佛堂咯。Next. Okay, Sister Marie.
So the tests on a cultivator whenever trials come is to determine if our cultivation is truly from the heart. So that's why God gives us trials.
所以说，上天老母娘咧敢若是会互咱考验，就是说考验修道人是真心的咧修道。
As a cultivator, we should be hold our true heart or be close to true nature and not lose determination. So whenever trials come.
所以说，咱做一个修道者，咱做一个修道人，咱就抱着真心甲决心会咧修道。Okay, next.
our our greatest enemy actually is ourself. Our greatest enemy is ourself only.
其实讲是其实家己，咱家己就是家己最大的敌人，最大的敌人就是咱家己。Next.
Many years ago, when I was pregnant with my second child, I remember that was the time that I was going to the temple almost every day. We do not live near the temple, we live quite far, but every day my mother and I would go to the temple to clean the temple here in Manila and to pray in the temple every day. I was pregnant with my second child that time.
20 年前我特别第一次拜拜差不多是因为佛堂甲我徛的所在也是有一段一段基地所以说我特别早起会去佛堂咧拜拜插不多是因为佛堂甲我徛的所在也是有一段基地所以说我特别早起会去佛堂咧拜拜
And it was during that time that I lost my baby.
当我踏入去佛堂烧香拜拜的时阵，我搁干了先，搁干了提。Okay.
But I immediately, after what happened, I immediately went back to temple and said thank you to God because I know that He is in control. I know that. I believe that because at that time I was already doing lecture. I was already learning so much about the Tao. Share to our Tian Tuan Shi, Jo Tian Tuan Shi, Tai Tian Tuan Shi for their support and all our seniors. They and I saw
Yes.
also Mrs. D also, Sister Lucy, Brother Peter, Brother Kevin. They help us understand the Tao.
我知影说会用干，我原在读去佛堂去感恩，因为家上天感恩说，这项代志是上天赐福我，赐福我，因为你暂时我已经咧开始咧讲道理，开始了解，了解道理，所以说我知影说上天会那会互我感觉信，在是有意的，有的无，什么无代无志，互我感觉信的，在是上天有意的，你有干那一项，在是上天有意的，你有干那一项。
And I remember until now, I very, I remember very clearly what Chai Tentuan Shu told me at that time. She said, if you lose a baby in your stomach, that means that baby is not strong enough to survive outside. So she said to me, you have to be grateful to Heavenly Mother because Heavenly Mother is helping you. And I said, "Sheshe Tentuan Sitsipei," because I understand, and I believe that what you said is true.
所以说，迄阵时差点产生甲会使，咱若一个囡仔也搁伫咱老母的腹肚的时阵，若好勇敢拍开也是好勇敢无去的时阵，就是意思说，这个囡仔虽然老母会腹肚若袂掉，会出会也做发生也做代志，所以说，你着真正甲上天感恩。伊 Sister Rosemary 说，有知影因为伊知影，伊咧讲道理伊有看到伊有知影知道理，所以伊嘛真正感恩，伊嘛甲田传说讲说伊了解这个代志，伊无说啥物怨恨，无一个怨恨的心。
Sometimes the closer we are to the temple or the more sincere that we are, the more that we are tested. And that's why we should not let go of our true heart and believe that the Buddhas and sages are with us, and that's how we will realize the truth.
所以说，当咱若也上伫佛堂的时阵，咱就会了解上天对咱怎样甲咱照顾，怎样甲咱，咱会较会了解上天的意思。
So another reason why we undergo trial is to resolve our karma. to resolve or to pay for our karma.
所以咱若是会晓做会拄到一个考验，就是要咱要消冤结孽，就是说要消咱的冤欠，要解咱的冤业。
So without soap and water, when we encounter trials, we suffer and therefore we are cleansed.
所以说，咱若无杀温无水的时阵，咱若拄着代志的时阵，咱就无法通洗清气。
For example, somebody, for example, somebody took something from you. Okay, let's say, I always explain this, for example, to one of my coworkers. One time, she just bought her cell phone, and somebody took that cell phone from her.
有一个譬如是一个我家己经过着的，我有一个同事，因为伊有买一支新的手机，毋过伊即支手机是有别人摕去，有别人摕伊即支手机。
So I tried to explain to her what happened to her in a spiritual context. So I told her, you know, why you lost that phone, why somebody took that phone, is that you owe that somebody something. So he just, he just, what do you call it? Made you pay for it, whatever you owe him.
所以说，一个同事放去手机的时阵，伊就该解释说，你敢若是会放去手机，因为你有欠一个人，你的手机你有欠一个人，所以说用你的手机来退还，所以你放去手机。
So that also teaches us whenever we undergo trials and we know that we are being made to pay for our bad deeds, then we will then be more careful not to think bad thoughts, not to say bad words, and not to do bad deeds.
所以说，咱若拄着一个考验的时阵，咱若拄着一个无好的考验的时阵，咱毋通家想歹，因为这个是咧消咱的冤业。
Oh, the third reason is so that it solve.
Sister Marie, medyo
Dissolve or remove our ego. Remove our ego. Remove our ego.
所以说，另外一个考验就是说，要将咱的傲慢的心，要将咱的消除咱的自我，将咱的傲慢的心该除掉。Next.
So there is a saying, a Chinese saying, that says, it is easy to change presidents, but it is hard to change the attitude of a person.
所以说，古早是有一句话叫做“江山易改，本性难移”。江山易改，本性难移。Okay.
So how does trials help remove our ego? How does trial help remove our ego?
所以说，咱的考验要怎啊将咱的自我、咱的傲慢消除掉。Okay.
What is the ego first? Let us try first to understand what is the ego.
什么是
When we say ego, it is our mind, okay?
所以说，什么是
It is our mind.
这个是咱的 咱的思想，咱的意念。
And our mind, if we do not align it to our true self, our mind can go wild, like a wild animal. If we do not tame it, our mind can do whatever it wants. So the ego, we must control it, or we must not allow it to be our master. So the ego or the mind should follow our true nature.
所以说，咱若无将咱的意念意念照咱的无照导落去做的时阵，咱会较难像一只野兽，真野会真野，所以说咱会离开道真远。咱的念头若无。
The ego is that part of us that okay. So the ego is that part of us that actually reacts to situation. For example, when we are younger, or when we were older, if our parents, our teacher, or our superiors tell us something, or reprimand us, it is that ego who feels bad and who doesn't want to listen. That is the ego. That is the mind.
所以说，咱若照咱若家己自我的时阵，咱的真正的反应迄部分就是咱咧创啥会照咱的咱的自我的行为去创。
So it is also the ego who judges others, who judge others, and who actually is the one that creates our emotions.
所以说，咱会用咱的咱的自我的时阵，咱就是咱咧判断别人的时阵，咱的创造感情的是永远是咱的自我，是用咱的自我去判断、去判断别人去创造感情。
For example, I will give you an example. If, for example, somebody says something against you, let's say your friend says that you are ugly, okay? Somebody says you are ugly. Okay, if somebody says you are ugly, and it's, for example, your friend, okay, the ego, the mind will say, if you think about what she said, what happens? You become angry, right? If you think what she said, you become angry. But if you did not think about what she said, okay, if you did not think about it, you just let it go. Will you get angry? No.
所以若下行就是，所以说，譬如有一个人说讲一句反对你的话，讲你是真歹看做，讲你说你真凶，你若说用你的自我来判断的时阵，你会也受气。毋过你若用你的分析落去判断的时阵，你会说歹看就歹看，那有啥物啊？
So when we undergo trials, it helps us realize it helps us realize what the ego can do to us. So it helps us dissolve the ego and allow our true nature to come out.
所以说，当咱进行判断的时阵，咱要怎意识到咱的 Sister Marie pakai ulit realize what ego ano? Ito na, nagcha-choppy kasi what
What
ego, realize what
can do
ego.
to us
Uh,
if we allow our if we allow our mind to be the master of the body instead of our true spirit. So when we undergo trial, we realize what the ego can do to us.
所以说当咱咧判断的时阵，咱也用咱的自我落去判断，这个是真无好。毋过咱也用咱的自生活落去判断，这个是对咱
So
一款好的。OK， next。
so trials, God uses trials to help us realize the truth and remove our ego. How? Because trials act as a mirror. Okay, it helps us see, okay, our weaknesses. It
所以
helps us realize our weaknesses or our bad points.
所以说上天用一个考验来消除掉咱的自我，咱才有法通将咱的较弱点甲消除掉，咱才有法通出咱的真勇敢的自我，真勇敢的本性。
In how do we train students to pass the test? So in my work, how do we train students to pass the test? So what we do is we give them a test, right? So we give them a test, and in every test that they take, the students, the purpose of the test that we give them is for them to know what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses when it comes to, for example, when it comes to certain topics. Okay, if they know their strengths, if they know their weaknesses, then they can change their weaknesses into strengths, and that's how they pass the test, the real test.
所以说，伫学堂的时阵，咱敢若是要互学生考试，咱伫学堂是叫做考试。伫学堂的时阵，咱互学生考试，就是要互因知影因家己的长处甲因的短处是啥物，甲因的因的中处甲低处是啥物，因的好，因的缺点。甲因的优点是啥物？
Or for example, when we are sick, okay, the doctor will order a diagnostic test, right? Diagnostic test, right? So, for example, a blood test, right? Through that blood test, okay, and it is a blood test is what? Painful, right? But through that blood test, we will know what is wrong with us, right?
所以说，譬如毋好的时阵，医生会下令叫咱检查，譬如说用抽血来检查，毋过抽血是真要检查要抽血是真痛的一项代志。毋过你若无抽血检查，要知医生咧知影说你有啥物检查。OK。
And notice that, for example, if you have a recurrent problem, let's say your problem is that you have no patience, okay? Let's say your problem or your weakness is that you have no patience. Okay, what will happen? Okay, God will give you, will give you situations that will test your patience.
所以说，譬如说，咱一个人若无忍耐性，若无 点内性若较无的、较弱的点内性，上天老母娘就会用会出一个问题，就是属于点内性的，属于点内性的考试、考验。OK，
So we should be open to accepting our mistakes or what is wrong with us, because especially when we go through trials, because that means God is telling you what you need to change.
所以说，咱就是接受咱的这个考验，因为上天老母娘要互你知影说，你就应该什么都该改除掉，你的缺点是什么，所以用你的缺点来甲你考验，你才有法通改除你的这个缺点。
Trials make us humble. Trials make us humble.
所以说，考验会互咱谦虚、谦虚会较谦虚咧。
Okay, I will give you an example. We had a student, and when she enrolled with us, she wanted to pass her English test.
伊有一个学生报名，伊这个学生伊的英文考会上。
But after she enrolled with us, her teacher told her, you need to change the way you speak, you need to speak slowly, you need to, there are so many things that the teacher told her, but she did not listen to the teacher.
伊的先生要爱改变，把这个学生改变，该说你讲话，你就讲较慢咧，你就什么什么就过讲话就较慢，就过你咧讲话的态度，一个什么？不过这个学生无要听这个老师咧甲伊讲诶。Next.
It's like all of us, sometimes when we go through some, we go to our seniors, our, we tell them our problem, but sometimes we do not listen. We actually do not follow. Sometimes we do not follow their advice.
但是有时啊，咱有拄着一个问题，有拄着一个代志的时阵，咱会去找咱的点传师，咱的前人还是老前人。毋过老前人点传师甲咱讲的话，甲咱教咱的话，毋过咱嘛是无要去照做，无要去缀点传师甲咱交代的话。
So this student did not follow what the teacher said, okay? So she took her exam and she failed.
但是这个学生，伊无照这个先生教伊的怎啊做，所以伊就考袂上。
And because she failed, okay, she realized that her teacher was right. So she came back, talked to the teacher, and told the teacher, I will follow you now.
所以说，当这个学生伊考试的时阵无及格，所以伊即阵才了解说先生该讲的是对的，所以伊搁我去找先生说，伊说今仔开始，从今仔日开始，我要照你讲的话去做。
So when we undergo trials, that's when we become humble enough to listen to the people who we do not listen to before.
所以说，即阵咱若经过一个考验，咱就会去体会到，会去体悟到说，人甲咱讲的是对的，所以咱就去照做。
Trials also help us develop patience.
所以说，这个考验也是有法让咱的开发咱的忍耐性。
So whenever we encounter trials, for example, when we get sick, we suffer, right? And in that time of suffering, we were made to endure that suffering. And then that's when we realize that, we had to go through that suffering because our patience is being developed.
所以说，当咱拄着毋好的时阵，咱会受着苦，会受苦，是为着一个变受苦。所以，迄个时阵，咱才有法通培养咱的忍耐性，忍耐性。
Trials also inspire compassion and empathy. Compassion and empathy. Compassion when we become merciful towards others, empathy when we are able to understand what others are going through.
所以说，这个考验也是有法通有法通激发咱的同情心，甲咱的自卑心，有法通启发咱的同情心甲自卑心。
For example, those of us who have already suffered from certain sickness or diseases, or if somebody in our family has experienced sickness and diseases, it makes us more merciful and more understanding towards others who are also suffering.
所以说，当咱拄着毋好的时阵，还是咱家己厝内的家庭的人拄着毋好，咱会受着一个痛苦，所以咱若看到别人有拄着一种毋好的代志，咱会家己自然而然的会有法通出一个自卑心出来。
So trials also soften our rough edges. It's like we are being polished. We are being grinded. So whenever we go through trials, it softens or smoothens our rough edges.
所以说，咱这个考验有法通将咱创做创做较软咧、较柔软咧，有法通将咱的较粗的身体，创做较幼咧，甲你磨较幼咧。
Like diamonds or other precious stones, we do not see their real value without, the jeweler polishing it, removing the rough edges and polishing it so that the inner glow will come out, especially like, for example, like diamond. Diamond is just a coal. When you see it rough, you will not realize its real value. But the jeweler will try to polish it, will remove the rough edges, and that's why the diamond is sparkles. It's and its true value.
所以说，一粒酸石，伊是一粒酸石是为着石头来的，咱就该搓，就该磨，互较变做冶金，磨幼，才会值钱。所以说，若无搓无磨的时阵，伊就无值钱。
Trials also help us build strength and courage.
所以说，考验有法通。
There is a saying that we often do not realize how much strength we have until we are challenged to use it. I will repeat. There is a saying that says, we often do not realize how much strength we have until we are forced or challenged to use it.
所以说，咱若这个考验若无考 若无一个考验，咱的力量甲咱的勇气，咱就摕袂入出来，因为有考验，有考验才有法人将咱有法人建立咱的力量甲勇气出来。
For example, I'm going to give you an example. When my mother was brought to the hospital last year when she was hospitalized, and they intubated her. You know, it was an emergency. And when we were in the emergency room, I was looking at my mother. Of course, I know that what she was going through was painful. And I said to my daughter, I I wanted to cry. I said, but I cannot cry. Why? Because I know that God is here, that the Buddhas are here. I know that I'm strong. I know that I don't have to cry. That's why I did not cry.
两年前，当我妈妈送去病厝的时阵，伊就甲 intubate。毋过咱知影说，若咧讲的时阵，咧讲咧气管的时阵，是真痛真痛。所以说，咱就要嚎，毋过伊嚎袂入出来。敢若是因查某说，敢若是囡仔要嚎出来，伊说伊知影这个是真痛苦，毋过伊嚎袂入出来。为什么？因为伊知影上天老母娘是伫咱的身躯边，咧帮助咱，咧互咱勇气，互咱力量甲勇气。
Trials also make us happier and improves our relationship with God.
所以说，这个考验有法通互咱搁快乐，搁较快乐，有法通互咱甲上天老母娘的感情搁较好，会提升咱甲上天老母娘的感情。
When things are going well in our lives, when we are happy, our business is doing good, when we are healthy, we sometimes forget God.
有时咱当咱咧顺利的时阵，就是生理也好，是逐项代志也顺的时阵，咱有阵会将上天老母娘放袂记哩。
But when things go wrong, when we are going through problems, when we go through trials, when something bad happens to us or to our family, that's when we always remember and realize our need for God.
当咱拄着逆境的时阵，咱拄着遐侪问题的时阵，咱迄暂时才想着咱的上天老母娘。
We realize that, for example, like during this pandemic period, the whole world was like going through its everyday, everyday thing, and then suddenly pandemic hit, right? And that's when we start to realize how important it is, like being able to see our friends, see our families. For example, us Tao cultivators, I know that a lot of us miss going to the temple and miss the big gatherings that we have. That's when we realize how important the things that we used to take for granted.
所以说，像即阵咱拄着一个疫情的时阵，全世界都受着考验，受着艰苦，所以说咱即阵才有法通感觉着咱的朋友，咱爱看咱的咱爱看着咱的朋友，毋过咱无法通看着伊，咱爱去不断咧去拜拜，也是无法，所以说咱即阵就会了解着这个疫情的艰苦。
This great pandemic should help us to realize how very fortunate we are. And that is just what happened to us, to me personally. I realized that how very fortunate we are, especially us who are already practicing vegetarian, I realize how very fortunate we are because those that are badly hit by the pandemic or those who unfortunately died because of this COVID are the ones with underlying diseases such as hypertension, high blood pressure, diabetes, people who have cancer and they did not know it. And we all know all these diseases are coming from the wrong lifestyle, the wrong diet. And that's why um, I am personally, I'm very fortunate. I'm very, very grateful to God and became even more closer to God and the Buddhas and the sages.
所以说，即场疫情我感觉说，我一摆一个疫情的时阵，我感觉真幸运，因为我是有窗口食菜，所以说我知也侪知拄着有破病的人，有糖尿，有癌的人，有中风的人，因为自忽然间离开这个世间，就是为，所以说咱也幸运。咱是窗口食菜，即阵一个疫情，我也感恩说，我也阁有法通伫佛堂咧修道救，咧也阁咧好好啊修，所以说疫情的时阵，我阁较接近上天老母娘。
And if we are enjoying good health right now, if our families are well, if we are listening to this lecture, if we are able to pai every day, we should be grateful because the Buddhas are actually protecting us. We are very, very fortunate, and that's why in the midst of this pandemic, we should have awakened already to the fact that we are very fortunate.
所以说，咱也幸运，咱就也幸运说，上天老母娘也阁直直咧保护咱，咱就阁较感恩，提出一个感恩的心。Okay, next.
So it is easy to be pleasant when life flows along like a song, but the man worthwhile is the man who can smile when life goes dead wrong. So again, it is easy to be pleasant or to be happy when life is good, but the man worthwhile, the real disciple or the real follower of the Buddhas and saints is the man who can smile when life goes dead wrong or when trial comes along.
这个就是咱面对考验的，咱若面对上天互咱的考验的时阵，咱就爱会晓要感恩。
So it's easy to be happy or to be grateful when life is good. Okay, when life is good. But a man worthwhile or the true disciple, okay, the true disciple of the Buddha is the man who can smile or who can say thank you when life is going wrong or when trials come along.
所以说，咱的生活，咱唱一首歌喊你水的时阵，咱是真容易的，真快乐。但是假逐人是有法人咱若说咱的生活若也快活的时阵，咱也欢喜。毋过等一个人。
So, like we said earlier, trial is like a grinding stone. it perfects us. So God is perfect. He wants us to be perfect, and He does that through trials. So before receiving Tao, it is not easy to change, but after receiving Tao, it is easier for us to change.
所以说，咱这个考验就是咱像一块磨石，磨石，上天老母娘是 perfect 嘅，所以说伊爱咱嘛是做一个真完美的，所以说咱咧修道，伊爱咱修道啊真完美，就是要做啊真完美咧，就是用考验来完美咱的一个修道人，所以说咱修道之前，咱求道之前真艰苦改变咱的态度，毋过。求道了后，有咧修的时阵，咱就有法通真自然的改善咱家己。Okay.
So the last reason why we need to go to trials is we are actually being prepared for a bigger role. So heaven gives us trials to because heaven has something big for us to heaven has in store for us a bigger role.
所以说，咱这个考验就是有法通定咱的品位。
So according to Mencius, before heaven gives us a great responsibility, so heaven will test us first. Okay? So how truly determined our heart is. So not because we are cultivating the Tao, that will mean we are free from trials. Like I said earlier, the more we cultivate, the more and the bigger the trials will be. But God is with us, the Buddhas are with us, and they will help us along the way, so we do not need to be afraid.
所以说明主有咧讲，天将当大责任互一个人的时阵，必须经过必先苦其心志，就是咱就是伊的心都考验伊的心，看有法能必先苦天将降大任于世人也，必先苦其心志，劳其筋骨，饿其体肤，空乏其身，心肺乱其所为，所以动心任性，增益其所不能，人狠过，然后能改困于心，恒于力而后作。Okay.
So like our Shichun Shermo, all our masters, our seniors, so they before they were able to propagate the Tao to us, to enlighten us, they themselves also went through a lot of trials and have overcome all very big trials.
所以说，咱的师尊、师表、点传师，甲咱的老前人，因嘛是早期嘛是拄着遐侪考验，才有法让因即阵会定伊的因的位置咧。
So be thankful for your trials. If you're being tested, you're being perfected. So God has mission for all of us, and we will continue to be tested, which means we have a divine purpose, and we have a reason to rejoice.
所以说，有时上天要造就你的时阵，互你一点考验，互你一点折磨，必须心存感恩。所以说，咱就 一个心，就是都有一个感恩的心。Next.
But we will only realize this. We will only realize how blessed we are if we are thankful, if we are grateful.
所以说，在世都有感恩的心，咱才有法人知影说，咱有偌福气。
Actually, every time I say this lecture, I go through certain trials. So every time I said to the Heavenly Mother, I said to Chikong Buddha, thank you for this trial. I know you are preparing me, you are enlightening me through these trials.
所以说，每摆我若要讲一个模考、一个考验的专题的时阵，我会之前就会拄着也侪考验。不过我嘛是会甲上天老母娘、甲志公老师说真感恩，说你互我有一个考验。
And every time I say thank you for my trials, I cannot say it is a miracle, you know, but it is a natural thing that happens. Whenever I say thank you, whenever I'm going through certain trials, immediately the burden is lifted from my heart.
所以说，我若每摆若心存感恩的时阵，就会上去就会拄着灾考验的时阵，我就心存感恩。所以说，灾考验就会大事化小事化，小事化无事。
So Mother Teresa said, I know God will not give me anything I can't handle. I just wish He didn't trust me so much. What did Mother Teresa said? God trusted her, so she entrusted to her a very, very big responsibility.
所以说，Mother Teresa。
So when God gives us big trials, that means God trusts our ability to carry those trials.
所以说，Mother Teresa 有讲到说，我知影上帝袂互我任何我无法处理的代志，我只是希望伊毋通较罕上信任我。所以说，伊的意思就是说，敢若是上天老母娘会互伊罕重的责任，所以说伊就去负一个责任。
Even Jesus Christ went through big trials in his lifetime before he was elevated to heaven.
所以说，耶稣嘛是拄着真侪考验，伊伫世间的时阵拄着真侪考验，然后才去天顶。
So all of us cultivator must undergo tests and trials from heaven in order for us to bear fruit.
所以说，每一位修行者都必须经验着种种的考验甲磨练，才有法让伊成，才有法让成正果。
We should be grateful for all our trials. For me personally, I know I will not be here. I will not be able to share my wisdom to you and to other people if I had not gone through many, many trials in my life, and if I had not been brought to Tao by our introducer and our guarantor, and of course, without the guidance and teaching of our Buddhas and saints, and of course, our seniors and our masters.
所以说，我真是真感恩。感恩我的因果师，感恩我的检查师，有法人互我求道受道，所以说我拄着在考验的时阵，我嘛是真感恩。
So God is merciful and benevolent. When we are lost, He points us to the way, to the right path by giving us trials in order to awaken us. So he's merciful. He loves us. If we will only always keep that in mind whenever we're going through problems and trials, we will not complain. We will be able to carry it lightly because we know that God has a purpose for all our trials, and that is too for our benefit.
所以说，上天留母娘是真自卑的。咱若未识的时阵，伊就会教咱一条路，伊会互咱考验，互咱才有法通提醒咱说，咱行的即条，咱创的即条路有倒落有毋对，互咱会提醒，会精神起来。
Like this, for example, like this great trial that befall the whole world, it is actually a wake up call to the whole world to realize the wrongs that we are doing, the wrong things that we are doing. One thing about that is especially, our lifestyle. It should have awakened a lot of people that, you know, eating meat and killing animals for food, it gives us sickness and diseases that will make us susceptible to viruses such as COVID. But it is not only COVID, a lot of viruses such as COVID. But the root of all those, the huge death toll, everything that's happening right now is the wrong things that we are doing, and we should awaken from that because of this great trial.
所以说，即阵咱拄着的一个疫情，就是咧甲咱叫醒咱，甲咱提醒说，咱的生活的方式已经有误对，咱咧食在肉做食物的时阵，在病毒就是为着肉来的，所以说，咱咧拄着一个疫情，所以说，若有法通尽量毋通搁食肉，咱毋通搁食肉。Times up, Sister Marie.
So trials, yeah, and tests don't come to make us fall, but for us to look for God and call, to go back to the temple, to realize that our spirit is more important than any other thing in this world. So trials don't serve as keys to hate, but rather doors to greater faith.
所以说，这个考验是毋是要甲咱，互咱对落的，就是要互咱说，咱着也该记得上天老母娘，会记得咱着叫伊。这个就是互咱这个考验是要互咱是一个无要互咱毋通阁有怨恨的心，互咱对这个。有搁较有信心，对上天老母娘搁较有信心。Okay,
so, how do we what do we do? What is the best thing to do? How do we overcome the trials? So this is my ending. Okay. So my message to all is that first, let us sincerely cultivate the Tao, because when we sincerely cultivate the Tao, when we do not stay away from the teachings of the saints and the sages, if we use our trials to enlighten ourselves, if we are grateful for our trials, and despite our trials, to still continue to cultivate the Tao, to propagate the Tao, okay, that's one way to be able to overcome the trials.
所以咱要怎啊克服一个考验，就是咱的真诚恳的修道，咱的了愿，咱的相信的，咱的行功了愿，然后咱的遵守咱的15条佛规礼则。啊，搁咱的三宝，咱就该遵守咱的三宝。
and fulfill our vows and follow the Buddha disciplines, no matter what is happening around us or with us. Let us adhere to our vows and to follow the Buddha disciplines. And the greater the trial, the more we should increase our faith and our sincerity in cultivating.
说咱就行功遥远，造法能消灭咱的咱的业障，然后咱较上接近佛堂咧，亲近咱的先知舍甲咱的15条佛规，咱的三宝。
And of course, finally, we are given the three treasures to be our guide in our cultivation and our protection from, from all types of harm inside and outside of us. Let us be grateful, be sincerely grateful, profoundly grateful for all these blessings that we have as Tao cultivators, and let us not stop in in sharing and enlightening others as well.
所以说，咱无管拄着顺逆境的险情的时阵，咱就心存感恩。咱若拄着灾，咱就再用咱的三宝。所以说，咱就常常心存感恩的心。
So once again, 谢谢陈传师慈悲，谢谢 Sister Lucy, and of course, forever grateful to our Heavenly Mother, to all the Buddhas and the saints for this opportunity to learn once again, to enlighten myself and to be able to share the teachings to others. And I will be forever grateful to being having received the Tao as well as my family, because I don't know, I can never thank enough God, and of course my In Pao Shu, and of course Tian Tuan Shi, because I know I will not be here right now without all those blessings.
所以说，要感恩电传师、隐师、导师，互伊有个机会求道、修道。所以说，伊心存感，伊就有一个感恩的心，嘛真感恩说有互伊机会，通遥远用功遥远，感恩。
To Tian Tuan Shi and to my seniors, Sister Lucy, Mrs. D. Okay, Mrs. D, she helped me also understand the Tao when the lectures are still in Chinese, but through her help, and of course our Tian Tuan Shi, who can speak English and Tagalog, to Tian Tuan Shi, he tried his best to answer my questions, and of course from then onward I continued to study the Tao and to learn about the Tao. And of course, to all my other seniors, such as uh, Peter and Kevin, who never failed to be there to give their support there. So I'm so very grateful for this Tao, and I hope that you all feel the same way too. So let us continue to spread it and continue to cultivate the Tao. Thank you so much.
所以说，伊也真感恩周电传师、蔡电传师、秀文学长甲彼得学长，因在就是因这个刘老师，因为暂时咱咧开班的时阵是讲咱人话，但是刘老师则该翻译英文，伊则有家己去学习，所以说伊真感恩在前贤伫伊边头咧该帮助伊的修道，感恩。
So kung may nasabi man akong mali o kung ako may pagkukulang, ay humihingi ako ng patawad sa ating mahal na Panginoon, sa ating mga Buddha at mga Santo, and of course, patawad sa inyong lahat.
Sister Rosemarie 是已经感恩天下，感恩慈悲，伊若有讲毋对若有讲毋对，请先互写做，请大家原谅。歇学非常交翻译中文，若有讲毋对请电传师 请先去请做各位学长谢做，请原谅翻译若无好势，请多多指教。感恩，Thank you, Sister Rosemary.
Thank you so